humanity is not forever chained to this planet, and our visions go rather further than that, and our opportunities are unlimited.
The Interplanetary Podcast. The exploration of space for the benefit of all mankind. Your hosts here in London, Matthew Russell and Jamie Franklin.
Oh yeah, baby space.
Matt, that was Neil Armstrong.
I love Neil Armstrong.
Isn't he great?
Amazing. Yes, so 49 years ago, on July the 21st, 1969, at 2:58 UTC.
Matt, I think you'll find it was 2:56.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah, I've just been rubbing my eyes. 2:56 UTC. Yes, Neil Armstrong became the first person to walk upon the surface of another celestial body.
I mean, as far as feats go...
Feet? Did you mean that in a sort of double thing?
Double meaning.
Double meaning of feet.
That's a pretty good one, isn't it?
It's amazing. And his footprint's still there.
Do you think...
And will be for a long time.
That he had a list of goals, and then after that it was like, oh, what am I going to do now?
No, because he kind of... That's the great thing about Neil Armstrong, wasn't it? It's just like, yeah, I've done that. And it must be hard. And I'll tell you who's finding it a little bit hard is the old Buzz. That
yes.
That it must be very, very hard once you've achieved like something that you really can't really achieve anything much greater than that. I mean, can you imagine if he went on to do something even more amazing?
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's just unbelievable.
But he did go off and do some really, really good things and do the things that he wanted to do. And didn't want to really be completely defined as the person that first stepped on the moon.
Yeah, I just think it's the most amazing thing that humanity has ever done.
I've often said this. Neil Armstrong will go down as the most famous person from this era because it's just the fact that he's the first to do it. He can't be replaced. So in even 3,000 years' time, he'll still be the first person that stepped on the moon.
Yeah. He walked on another world.
Yeah, and it ain't any time soon that it's going to get redone, is it? So anyway, poor old Buzz Aldrin isn't the first person to walk on the moon, and it's what's really weird.
He's not having the best time, is he?
And he's not having the best time right now. And yeah, poor old Buzz. Come on, Buzz.
We still love you, Buzz.
Yeah, everyone loves you, Buzz. And you were joint first to land on the moon.
I was going to say, let's not feel too sorry for him.
Joint first to land on the moon.
I'd love that. I'd love that stat.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I can see it's mildly irritating to always be the second person to step on the moon, but it is a big deal.
Always the bridesmaid.
It's a bit like me.
You
mean
I was going to
say
you? Because when we walk around, everyone always recognises me, and they say, "Oh, are you Jamie from Interplanetary Podcast?"
Yeah, and I'm just standing going, "Well, what?
Right, do you know Matt?" They
Matt
all say, "Who cares?"
And they say, "Matt who?"
Who cares? Hey, Matt, have we had any letters from our listeners?
We have had a reader's letter, and I really wanted to read this out because it was after he listened to the our Romain Charles interview.
Romain.
So. What he said is, what secret horrors are the Russians hiding about what went down in that isolation cell? What happened to Roman to tear him away from his dream of one-way Mars colonization? Is Roman only a very accurate copy of the version of himself that went in?
My goodness.
Are any of us really the same people that we used to be? Whether the transformation is born from the mind-bending horrors of life in a universe of increasing entropy or from 3D human cloning machines, our transformation to who we are today reveals that we have been robbed of something essential and precious that made us who we were yesterday.
Jesus wept. I love that.
Hashtag justice for Romain. Hashtag we want truth about Mars 500. Hashtag innocence lost. Hashtag blame the Chinese. I want to add one more. Hashtag blame Trump.
Oh, yes. Blame Elon.
Yes. Blame Elon.
I'll tell you what, Matt. I mean, that is genius. I love that.
I love
and
that.
I'll tell you what, some big questions that we need answered.
Yeah,
absolutely. Should we get Romain back on the phone?
We should. We should ask him if he has been replaced. Oh my God.
Do you think he might be?
Does it take maybe it takes 520 days to build a replicant? Maybe that's what it's all about.
Do you think he might be one?
Maybe the way Trump's been behaving, he's a replicant.
Oh my God.
And he went to Helsinki to pick up some spare parts from Putin.
Call Harrison.
We definitely need a Blade Runner. Musk has gone mental.
Well, we just mentioned his name. I mean,
drink.
As you know, we are massive fans of the man's work. What we're not massive fans of is his recent mental breakdown via Twitter. What's he doing, Matt?
I'm not quite sure what he's doing. But like you said we were having this discussion earlier, and you said it's just totally unnecessary.
Yeah, doesn't need to do this.
When you've got someone as cool as Alan Bond saying that you are his hero. Well, this is Alan Bond. Just listen to that Alan Bond and what he's achieved in his life and how ridiculous he is. And he's saying Elon Musk is his hero. So why do you have to get narky with someone because they thought one of your ideas was a bit rubbish? It's just ridiculous. Yeah. And then call them a pedo.
I mean, yeah, that was...
Well, the only explanation I can think of, Jamie, is that maybe that guy was wearing a pair of Speedos and the S had fallen off.
Yeah.
Because he was doing a lot of diving.
Although I'm a bit worried, Matt, because he has deleted all of those tweets. But it has gone out to his 22 million followers.
Yeah.
So...
And I can't imagine that the poor old chap...
I smell a lawsuit coming.
Vern Unsworth was particularly happy about it.
He definitely wasn't happy.
No. So, yeah.
Nor would you be. So, Musk, chill out.
You literally just chill.
Do what you're good at. Put the phone down.
Yeah.
And stop calling people
look, there's nothing wrong with Elon coming up with some great ideas and trying to do stuff.
No, and I defend him on that because people were saying, and he genuinely was trying to help. But the way he responded to people saying it wasn't the right thing was really bad.
It's just really bad.
He needs PR help, Matt,
He needs PR help. If only we knew someone that could help him.
I know. Well, we'll keep thinking.
So, I'm going to declare, we're recording this on a Tuesday, by the way, for all those people out there in Wonderland. And obviously this is coming out on Friday, but yesterday, Monday the 16th, I think is one of the most exciting days in UK space history.
Well, it has to be.
I literally, as the news unfolded during the day, because we'd kind of had a sort of heads up that it was happening. We mentioned it on the podcast a few weeks ago, how the Cornish County Council were getting excited about an announcement coming up at Farnborough. But I must admit, I didn't foresee some of this stuff. I literally, it's all completely.
Well, for me,
it's
the timeline. I mean, that is so exciting.
Oh yeah. So yeah, look, it looks like. Well, we haven't just got one spaceport. We've got two spaceports that seem like they could actually be launching within the next 5 years. Actually launching before we see either SLS or the launch of James Webb's Space Telescope.
I mean, so much of the news that we talk about is always launches
in 22 or 23.
No, but geographically in Russia, in America, but to have it on our home soil.
Yeah, literally.
Wow.
Well, it's the only launch in Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, half this programme we're going to be talking about the European Spaceport, of which my little trip there, and we've got 3 interviews, little interviews with the people at the European Spaceport. So this is a Spaceport special. But I actually genuinely thought, European Spaceport, that's really cool. But then suddenly, really, the European Spaceport is going to actually be in the UK, and it actually doesn't look completely unreasonable either.
How exciting would it be to say, there's a launch next week, let's just drive down, it'll take 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now here's the thing. So there's 2 places. So we've got Sutherland in Scotland, right?
Right.
Now this is a name I wasn't expecting to hear. Lockheed Martin. So Lockheed Martin are the people that have just won this $31 million to basically develop this spaceport in Sutherland. And what vehicle are they going to be using? Again, this like blew me out of the water. And someone actually suggested this. I think it was Richard Hollingham suggested this while we were out at the European Spaceport. Was we were going to use the Electron. We could use the Electron, as in the Kiwis Electron.
Yeah.
And it turns out that that Lockheed Martin had actually invested in Rocket Lab, and so that's one of the reasons why. So they'll build a sort of British version of the Electron, of Rocket Lab's Electron for this Sutherland Scottish launch site. I mean, how cool is that?
That's super cool.
And then even better,
Go on.
and you're going to love this, even though it's a rival synth manufacturer. It's not actually a rival. It's a pretend rival because it's not the same company. But Lockheed Martin are going to develop a orbital manoeuvring vehicle up a stage called the SLOMV, or the Small Launch Orbital Manoeuvring Vehicle,
or the SLOMV.
The SLOMV. And that's going to be manufactured by Moog in the UK.
It's actually pronounced Moog,
Matt. Well, see, Moog, the synthesizer, is pronounced Moog.
Oh.
But I think Moog, the rocket parts company in the UK, is pronounced Moog.
Do you?
Yeah, but I actually don't know.
Should we call them up?
We call them up. Let's get them.
We'll
up.
ring them up and then see what the receptionist says.
Yeah, and say hello.
Welcome to Moog.
Welcome to Moog UK.
And I'll be like, told you.
Yeah.
Well, that is exciting.
Yeah. So Moog.
So go on, Lockheed.
Go on, Lockheed, and it's working on some satellites with orbital microsystems that is going to be the first flight on this thing. So this is all pretty serious stuff.
So little CubeSat.
Yeah, little 6U CubeSat that's going to go around collecting weather data. And so I think that's really, really cool.
That is really cool. We have to be at the first one.
Oh, no, absolutely. Oh, my
No
gosh.
brainer.
But that might be like 2021, 2022.
I can wait.
But it's not long, is it?
Well, what are you going to wear?
I might even buy some new jeans. Definitely,
it's a momentous occasion.
I'm definitely wearing my Dharma Initiative t-shirt.
Oh, definitely.
And see how many geeks there are there.
Yeah.
But not only is this Electron going to be flying from Scotland, but we might see a actual British-built, like a totally British-built native launcher as well, called the Prime, by a company called Orbex. Ooh. Yeah, and they've developed this vehicle, and they've managed to get $40 million of funding from European venture capital firms such as Sunstone Technology Ventures and the high-tech Grundenfond.
Sounds very European.
Grundenfond. Yeah, it's actually a bit like Grinderfond. Grinderfund, which is...
It's the German app everyone needs.
This Prime is going to be a sort of environmentally friendly launcher. So it's like it's using special fuel, biopropane, rather than normal, dangerous things like kerosene that aren't very nice.
Well, we are advocates, aren't we, Matt, of trying to keep the planet in good nick.
Yeah, absolutely. And this minimises the environmental impact because it's low mass, low carbon, uses a single renewable fuel, biopropane, and cuts carbon emissions by 90% compared to the old-fashioned hydrocarbon fuels.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Good on ya.
Yeah. So, amazing. So, I'm going to try and get a little chat with Orbex.
We should get on the blower,
and I'm definitely going to check out their stand at Farnborough Air Show.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah! So we're going to we're going to Farnborough Air Show.
That's this Saturday, isn't it?
I think we're going Sunday.
Sunday? Oh, I can't remember.
Sunday, I think. I can't remember.
We'll discuss this off air.
Yeah. The Highlands and Islands Enterprise has been given like $2.5 million from the UK government to help run this spaceport. But of course, there's been a bit of local protest. Residents have been divided. There's a Crofting Township, whatever that is, of about 200 people at Talmine on the Kyle of Tongue. I'm not even making that up. A crofting... No, let me repeat that sentence.
Here we go.
A crofting township of about 200 people at Talmine on the Kyle of Tongue. I've not made that up.
Is incredible. I think we should print that off and frame it.
200 people down at Talmine on the Kyle of Tongue.
Hey, I need some crofting township.
Yeah, actually, I think that was a more appropriate Scottish.
Kyle of Tongue.
Kyle of Tongue.
I mean, now that sounds remote.
Yeah. Some are very, very pro. Some people have real concerns.
Well, I'm not surprised that they have concerns.
And the feelings are very strong.
Yeah.
That's what Councillor Linda Munro said from the Sutherland County Committee. Wow, that's her moment in the sun right there.
It really is.
So anyway, not only have we got a vertical launch site in Sutherland, we have a horizontal one, the other side of the country, down in Newquay. Just for our non-UK geography conversant listeners.
Well said.
Thank you. We have one way of measuring the longest distance in the UK is going from Land's End to John O'Groats. Now, John O'Groats is pretty near the Scottish launch site, and Land's End, of course, is very near the Newquay launch site. So they're actually about as far away as you could possibly be in Britain. So, but how cool is this? So Virgin Orbit have revealed plans to conduct orbital rocket launches from the Cornwall Airport, Newquay, by 2021.
I love this. They might, by then, have accepted my job application to be crew.
Oh, yes.
Which I still haven't heard back from. I applied 6 years ago.
I wonder if we can fly on the beautiful plane. Do you know what the plane's called?
It used to be White Knight.
No, but this is different. See, White Knight carries their human launch vehicle, Spaceship 2, but this is for carrying a small launcher. You know, Pegasus.
Wait a minute, you don't mean Cosmic Girl?
I do mean Cosmic Girl, which used to be a 747, former Virgin Atlantic Boeing. So it's a 747, and it's called Cosmic Girl, and it flies these rockets up as far as it can go, and then the rockets launch from underneath and blast into space.
Cosmic Girl. It's very Branson, isn't it?
Very Branson. Branson, why don't you come on the show and tell us all about this?
If you're listening, Dickie,
I was really pleased to see what they said on their website. They did say that he said, although Virgin Orbit is a company based in California, we feel as though we have a real British heritage and we can't wait to come home, essentially. And I thought that was really cool.
I hope so.
So
put your money where your mouth is, Branage.
And of course, so yeah, Launcher 1 is the rocket that's going to go under the left wing of this Boeing 747. And can deploy rockets into very small satellites into orbit. Now, the one thing I do think about that, I don't think it's going to be a particularly exciting place to go see the launch, because of course this plane's just going to take off and it's just going to look a little bit like a 747 taking off from an airport.
Yes.
Which isn't the most exciting thing in the world.
No.
Although my mate Greg did have that as his birthday party once, of going down to Birmingham Airport and watching the planes take off.
Oh my goodness. How old were you?
I don't know, about 7 or 8, and even then we were sort of all looking around.
3 weeks ago.
No. Greg runs a very hard pub in Australia, so.
When you say hard pub, do you mean the brick walls are tough, or?
No, the clientele.
Oh.
Clientele will slice your face off and stuff like that. So.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Now, what's the area with King's Cross in it?
Sydney.
Is it Sydney?
Yeah.
Oh, he's in Sydney, not Adelaide.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a hard area of Sydney.
Yeah, that's where he's got his pub.
Yeah. Where are we at?
So yeah, so Cornwall's happening, man.
Cornwall is officially on the map again.
Yeah, it's becoming a bit of a space city.
Who'd have thought, Matt? Because it's really synonymous
county.
with just where you go and chill out, drink a few ciders, maybe do some surfing.
Yeah, have a cream tea.
But now it's where you go and look at your fairings and your reusable rockets.
Yeah, man. But you see, I've thought when they said that they were going to announce a horizontal launch at Newquay, I was thinking, well, what can they mean? They must mean Skylon. And then I pedalled back a little bit and thought, they can't mean Skylon because that would be too outlandish. And then I thought they must mean Virgin. So I kind of did guess that Virgin were going to be the people doing it. But I'm really excited. I'm genuinely really excited.
Absolutely mega.
I'm going to be talking with David Baker on Saturday for next week's podcast.
Can we get his thoughts and views?
I can't wait to get his thoughts and views because I'm really excited and I want him to burst my bubble.
I know he's going to.
Well,
maybe we shouldn't ask
maybe
him.
Maybe not. Maybe he's going to go, yeah, this is it. It's actually happening.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, let's hope so. That's really exciting news. And I hope that we've built up to that story with some of the podcasts that we've done, like the UK Launch podcast, where we interviewed Robin Brand, who was talking about the Scottish option.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what else has happened this week.
One.
So one of the things that I flew out to French Guiana to see was the firing of the P120C.
Yes.
But like everything in rocket world, it was delayed by a couple of weeks.
Of course it was.
But they have successfully fired the P120C, which, if you've been listening to our previous podcasts, is the largest monolithic carbon fibre solid rocket motor ever built, with 142 tonnes of propellant.
That's a lot.
So it really should be called the P142C.
It would help with my OCD.
Yeah, but apparently it was supposed to have 120 tonnes of propellant, but they managed to get 142 in. So that's why they call it that.
So the P120C is going to equip the boosters of both Ariane 62 and 64 and the Vega C first stage.
That's right. So it's the C in P120C stands for common. So this common booster that means that they've got this common part that goes with the Ariane 62 and the Ariane 64, and the Vega C, which means that they can just build loads of them and use them up on these various launch vehicles and increase the efficiency. It actually cuts the price of Ariane 6 in half what the cost of Ariane 5 is. So yeah, it does make
that's a saving.
That is a saving. So it does make the Europeans more cost effective. But now maybe the Europeans are going to have a new spaceport as well, in the shape of Grande-Bretagne. But we'll see. So yeah, that's really, really exciting. And obviously, I saw all the journalists and everything from Ariane and Avio. But the guys from Avio, I have to say, were super, super cool. I absolutely loved them. And they gave me this little charger for my phone, which has actually saved my bacon today. So thank you, Avio.
Yeah, and thanks for mine.
Oh, you can have this one, Jamie.
Oh, thanks.
Well, no, actually, I've got you one. Oh. No, this is one of the things I've got you at home.
Oh,
and I've got you a little model Ariane 6.
Oh, yes. Thanks, dude.
You can have it on over here. Nah, you don't want the P120 figures, do you?
I don't want any stats.
Yeah, I'm going to give you one.
Yeah.
It's got a specific impulse of 278.5 seconds.
That's almost as quick as mine.
Yeah, don't think you've understood specific impulse. You need to go back to college.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so do you want me to tell you a little bit about the CSG, Jamie?
I'd love to hear it.
So yeah, do you know what? Instead of me telling you about it, I'm going to go to my interview with Charlotte Beskow, who is the head of the ESA Kourou office. You know, we saw we went into the ATV mock-up in Cologne.
Yeah.
She was the deputy head of that program.
Oh, no way.
She's a serious deal, and she was super, super nice to me all day long. So she sat next to me on the bus and told me some great stories, and eventually I managed to get 20 minutes of her time and have a little interview where she told me how the whole spaceport worked. Do you want to have a listen?
Well, I haven't heard this yet, and I've been really excited to hear it, so roll that tape.
Kaboom!
My name is Charlotte Beskow. I am the current head of the ESA office here, so I represent the Directorate of Launchers and the rest of ESA here in CSG.
I was wondering if you could tell our listeners a little bit more about the Space Centre itself.
The Space Centre is really a very It's a really neat place to be. It's a high-tech, very advanced launch base. It's very flexible. It has been in activity since 50 years. The first launch was exactly 50 years ago in April this year. Today we have 3 launch pads. We can launch Ariane 5s, Soyuz and Vega rockets, and they are all designed to be able to take a different type of payload into orbit, a different size of payload, and we can reach almost any orbit. We're ideally located on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean with fairly free access to the north and to the east, and very close to the equator, which offers us a great advantage in terms of getting payload mass into orbit.
Yeah. And so are you able to tell us a little bit about how the whole Space Centre, because one thing I have noticed while being here, it's absolutely vast. So how does the Space Centre actually work on a almost on a day-to-day level? How does it function?
It's a huge launch base. And in the beginning, it was dimensioned for one rocket. And over the years, as the launcher industry progressed, the site also progressed, and we gradually increased. We would move from one facility to another facility, gradually building new ones. And this is why we speak about the current launch facility as the ELA 3, the third launch pad, which implies that we had an ELA 2 and an ELA 1. So Ariane 1 flew in 1979, so we've been flying Arianes since then. And the location is ideal because there's not many people living in this zone, so we have plenty of space. And the reason everything is so spread out is, of course, for safety reasons, because essentially everywhere you go on site, as soon as you enter the launch area, you're just surrounded by things that can explode, poison you. If you get it on your skin, you'll be damaged. And so to prevent accidents from happening, all these installations where we handle dangerous materials are separated by several hundred meters. And we also separate between the payload facilities, the launcher facilities, and the actual launch base. And the clients will see one aspect of the base, the clients being the payloads. The people who work in Centre Technique, who work for CNES, who are in charge of ensuring the safety of the launcher, they will see another aspect of the activity. And the people who work on the launcher, assembling the launcher, making it ready for flight, see a separate activity. But all these activities, they're all independent, but there are several areas where we touch base. So there's a continuous coordination between the different activities in a campaign. And each campaign follows a certain amount of set procedures. And so, in very simple terms, the satellite arrives by boat or by plane. It's transported to its payload preparation facility. They check that it survived the launch. They may or may not do complementary tests in the clean room. Some satellites will deploy solar arrays, others just check that it survived. And then they move into the fueling area, and this is usually always a separate area because of the safety concerns. They fuel it up. They put it under the fairing, and then what we call the upper composite, so the satellite plus the fairing, is then taken to the launcher. Now, in order for this to work, the launcher must have been prepared in parallel. So in a different set of buildings, the launcher is being assembled. It has arrived, the main stage has arrived from Europe. It will be fueled here with fuel we produce on site. The boosters, essentially the casings arrive from Europe. The solid booster, the solid propellant of the boosters is filled here in CSG. It's produced and filled in CSG in the booster production facility. And then the segments are put together. They are transported to the integration building, and they're attached to the launcher. Once the launcher has been fully integrated with all its electronics and everything else, it is moved to the final assembly building and being ready to receive the payload. And once that is done, once the payload is on, then we're more or less ready to go. And while all that is going on, then in parallel, the base is getting ready. And the base is getting ready means we need to configure all the downrange telemetry stations, we need to configure the radars, we need to configure all the telecoms activities so that the payload can so we can communicate with the downrange stations. People have to be trained on that particular flight. We've done a series of tests, we've gone through a lot of checks, and then all these activities are supposed to match up a couple of days before launch. Everybody says they're ready to go, and then 2 days later or 3 days later, we're all here, and by then, nothing more should be done. Everything is fixed and frozen, and then it's just a matter of hoping the weather gods are cooperative, no glitches.
Absolutely. So is there one launch that you can consider quite a memorable launch? Is there one of your sort of a favourite launch campaign?
Every launch campaign is really different. We have some launch campaigns go on for a long time. Before I came here as the representative of the ESA office, I worked as a client. I represented ESA for the ATV launches. ATV was really complicated because we had a very long campaign. We did a lot of integration on site. And in general, before you come, you worked out with Arianespace. For the client, Arianespace is the counterpart. We present a planning to Arianespace that shows them that we can meet our schedule, because everybody needs the same resources. So one client will move out of the payload facility and the next client will be moving in. So it's important that you don't underestimate the effort. And what happened on one memorable campaign was that the boat that took ATV across the ocean broke down. So instead of arriving, I can't remember if it was August the 1st, we arrived 2 weeks late. So we started the campaign with 2 weeks delay. Now that is not a brilliant thing. And then during the campaign, we had some difficulties with our solar array integration. This is a fragile point, and we kept mounting and dismounting the solar arrays, the mechanisms, in order to cope with the failure, because we cannot allow for failures. And eventually having to ship some items back to Europe and then wait for the replacements. And unfortunately, this coincided with extreme weather conditions in Europe, where Cannes was being inundated and people's homes were being flooded. So I cannot say we had the undivided attention of the back offices either, although they did do their best and they did come in and work weekends and Saturdays and Sundays to cope. And in the end, everything still came together. So in the end, the delays were not very many. ATV was also complicated because we prepared the vehicle in two parts. We had an awful lot of mechanical equipment, and just moving everything around took a long time. And the vehicle, the aft part, which contained all the propulsion modules, had then to be mated with the forward part, which was pressurized and contained all the cargo. And in one very memorable incident, we were carrying food for the ISS. That was standard payload for the ISS. And the French authorities decided they would apply the law, which means it gives them the right to open any food coming into France. And we had a hard time trying to explain that this food was not going to France. It was transiting to France because it was going into space. But the authorities decided to apply the rules as they were, and they said if you come via Charles de Gaulle, which we would normally all cargo would do, to get from US to here is easier to go via Paris, then they reserved the right to open the packages. So in the end, NASA couldn't take the risk, because that would have obviously made their food unfit for consumption. So they had to charter a plane, and they had to fly, and the only plane they could get at short notice was a very old aircraft they used for parabolic flights, and it didn't have a very wide range. So they had to kind of go island hopping in order to get here. And then the poor guys, we unloaded all the cargo, we brought to CSG, probably on a Saturday, because these things never work out as planned. And then they got caught by a hurricane going back, and they got diverted to I don't know where, and they got home like 3 days later. So it was just one of these continuous, just every day was different. And every day you came into work, you had no idea what was going to happen. But it always worked out well. And people at CSG were brilliant. They were always there to help us and try and smooth out the various difficulties we had, because it's in everybody's interest that the payload leaves. Having us here, it might be very nice, but the idea is to get us out of here.
Yeah, and so that is there an enormous pressure on time, so that you've always got the time clicking away.
Absolutely.
So how do you build in the contingency to make sure that because it's obviously everything. There's always something that goes wrong. There's always something that goes wrong.
So in general, what we do is, what most clients do is, if you have a commercial client like a telecom satellite, there are so many builders of those type of satellites, it's usually the same teams. They come back. They have a fairly good knowledge of what they have to do. They know where their troublesome areas are. They've built in their margins. It's not so difficult. And their teams come on a regular basis. They might work Monday to Friday and allow for putting in an extra shift. CSG is very flexible. We had until Thursday to declare the need for an extra night shift or an extra weekend shift, for example. And provided we told them in advance, at least like 48 hours or 36 hours, we could always work even up until 10 o'clock on Saturdays. And if really necessary, we could also work on Sundays. So it's just a matter of planning ahead. So we tended to use, at least for ATV, we would plan for a 5-day week, and we kept the weekend as a margin. And I think we worked most Saturdays. And if necessary, you could work a night shift as well. And so this is how you do it. You know roughly where your trouble areas are. It's more difficult with the institutional launches because you've spent maybe 7 or 8 years building your satellite. You're not going to take any risks with the launch. If you have a component that breaks down, you need to adapt for it. And if it's a development project, I mean, it's not easy to say, this is going to take us X time. And also, of course, you need to schedule the transports back and forth. But in general, it works very well. But you build it in, you put a little bit of margin into your schedule. You make sure you have a few Saturdays that you're not planning to work, so you can work them. And you bring enough spares, and you bring enough spare material, and you make sure you have people on hand that you can call, even at odd hours, because of the time difference, so that you can get immediate help from your back office. And in general, if you've spent like 7 years developing a big project and you're getting close to launch, it's not so hard to motivate people. Everybody wants this to succeed. And people will, we had on ATV again, we had people who were getting married who would, they would break their honeymoon. And you can reach me at 12 o'clock every day. I'll climb up on a hill and activate my phone and check if anything's happening. And so there's a tremendous will to conclude.
Yeah, I mean, with that does seem to be the sense with a lot of space projects that they're often a labour of love. I mean, we've got the James Webb telescope launching from here soon.
Yes, or
slightly later than we expect, but. Without that kind of attention to detail, I suspect it would be a bit of a non-starter. How do you cope with the one thing that is all the different organisations that are involved at the Space Centre? So you've got quite a few, CNES, Ariane Space, Ariane Group.
There are several actors, and it works because everybody has their role to play. And this has been hashed out in the very beginning, but it has also been modified as we go. So it takes a while for the newcomers to be familiar with it, but once they understand it, it's actually very smooth. There's a very clear distinction about responsibilities, who is responsible for what. And so, and I must say, I think it works. Probably it can be streamlined, everything can, but on a day-to-day basis, it does work. People know what they're supposed to be doing, they know who they should interface with, they know where to get their information. And I would say it works, from my perspective, it works very well.
Do you actually, when you're working here, do you actually get to go and see the launches outside, or do you have to come to, because we're sitting in, is it Jupiter 2?
This is Jupiter 2, yes.
Yeah, so would you normally be working from here, or would you actually...
I have a seat. It's not my seat. Isa has a seat inside the control room. And if I'm working the launch, I do not go outside. None of us in the control room actually go outside, because outside is a lovely spectacle. But what's important is really what's happening. How's the launcher behaving? Is it behaving as it should? Is it in good state? And that you cannot see from outside. That you see from your screens. So everything that's important is being monitored from the inside. If I'm not working, then obviously, yes, I would go outside and look for it or look at it. So sooner or later I will. But when I worked here in my, X years ago, when I was here on my first tour of duty, over 3 years we did 30 launches, and I did 20 of them. And I think I must have seen 2 or 3. So it's not often that we actually see the launch.
Well, it's almost a pity, but yeah, I suspect that it's pretty exciting in here. Well, Well, I've just got one last question for you, because it's something I've always wondered. With this facility where you're saying you have to be here because there's so much going on with the launch, a lot of it's automated. How much control do you actually have over say an Ariane 5 once it's actually going? So, I know you can obviously look at the telemetry, but is there anything that you can actually do on the ground?
You don't pilot it. It's programmed by the computers. So I'm not a launcher specialist, so I'm probably the wrong person to address it. But in principle, the launcher is qualified to execute its flight software program, and it will execute it.
Yeah.
The launcher will then tell us where it is and what it's doing and what the pressure is and how it's performing, and engine cutoffs and ignition and all that. It's not piloted remotely.
No,
I don't think anybody does
that. No. But I'm just thinking of how everyone may feel a little bit of a kind of passive viewer to this.
Everything we can do, we do beforehand.
Yeah.
And even there, when the synchronized sequence starts at -7 minutes, the human intervention stops, because there are so many steps to be done in those last minutes that it's better dealt with by computers. So they're the ones that handle it. And but these systems have been qualified and well qualified and tested. So that's the reason we don't actually hit a button that says go. We can hit a button. The people responsible can hit a button that says don't go. And that's the limit of our commitment. But the work that's being done before is the judgment. Few things are ever black and white. It's the judgment of whether or not it's safe to go. You might have equipment that is a little bit on the blink. You might have a telemetry station that suddenly drops out, or you have a radar that suddenly drops out and comes back. You might have a sensor on the launcher that suddenly fails a test, and before you determine if it's a sensor or the system, there's margin built into the countdown to allow you to cope with these things, and there are many tests built into the countdown to ensure that all the systems are properly interfacing with each other, be it the launcher. The launcher has a few systems that interface with the base equipment, and there are steps in the countdown that allow you to check out. So all this is why our countdown takes like 10 or 12 hours. And this is done very carefully, and it's completely done, of course, the day of the countdown, but we do a full dress rehearsal 3 days before launch, depending on the launcher type. We do a complete test with all the downrange stations, like 7 days before launch, to make sure they have the right data, because some of them are far away. And we do a couple of other tests to make sure that all the teams are up to speed. So we do everything we can to make sure that it's completely ready for
So every
day zero.
So every launch has a dress rehearsal that's very specific to that launch.
Yep. And even if it's a standard launch, you can say, it's a standard launch, but there is no such thing really. We're not quite there yet. We're not it's not automobile production where we're producing 1,000 a month or even 500 a month. Every launch is different. And it is true, every launch has its own particularities. Now we're going to launch Galileo in a few weeks' time. And it's an Ariane 5. We did it last time in December, so it's fairly similar. Same, but you know.
Yeah. Slightly different.
Slightly different.
Yeah, and then you've got quite a few launches. Bepi Colombo is one of my favourites that I've just seen it, so I'm quite excited about that.
It's extraordinary. And it's really wrong to speak about one payload. Bepi is 3 payloads.
Yeah.
And so actually we have 9 satellites on site, basically, and 9 ESA payloads, except one of them is Japanese.
Yeah.
But that's quite extraordinary.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that is really, it must be a record.
Yeah, well, and imagine quite hard to manage the way that they flow through the entire space center. And
CNES does this really well. It's interesting because they've had it very well organized with key persons who handle the client interfaces, and then key services that are responsible for the infrastructure to make sure all the buildings, and a system with on-call people that you can call them almost any time, day or night, to make sure anything that breaks or fails or needs doing or need help with, or people suddenly realize, I need some extra equipment, or my computer's failed, I need some help, and I need to get into the office for whatever reason. They lift the phone and somebody will come.
Yeah, And with the arrival of Ariane 6 and Vega C, that seems to me as though it's almost it's an attempt to simplify, if anything, the procedures that are around the Space Centre. Is that correct? Is that
again? Yeah, it is. But we again separate between the launcher processing, the payload processing, and the centre technique processing. So Ariane 6 and Vega C, they will simplify their launcher preparation activity, which is you can say, these three lines go on in parallel, and then they meet up for the launch. They meet up here and there in between. But of course, if they can cut down the time it takes them to mount the launcher, you save time. You save, if you save on the number of manipulations you have to do, you're also cutting down on the risk that something will go wrong. So it makes good sense. In terms of BEPI, it wouldn't make any difference because BEPI's preparation is BEPI's preparation.
Yeah.
It's independent of the launcher. As long as it's ready to meet the launcher, then, Ariane 6 needing 12 days or 25 days makes no difference to BEPI.
Yeah.
What makes a difference to the site is how quickly can we go from one client to the next.
Yeah.
But then again, if we have several clients that need 7 months of preparation, that is going to be in itself a bottleneck unless we have more payload facilities. But on the other hand, we have quite a few payload facilities, and we make optimum use of them. Then it also depends on the size of the payload. Big payload, you have fewer options. Smaller payloads, we've got S1A, we've got S1B, we've got S5C, we have S5B, the fueling hull. They're actually going to use now for Aeolus. Because BEPI that needs to fuel in S5B will not need to fuel. Aeolus should leave before BEPI needs fueling. So we optimize the resources, and so the launcher is one thing, but that will cut the costs for the client, and that's important if you want to be attractive to people. And then there are other actions ongoing to see how we can streamline the everyday operations. But I would say that's normal work. That's something that people do all the time.
Yeah.
Because this is we do a lot of these processes are the same for every launch, irrespective of launcher type.
Yeah.
And if we do very few launches, we might need to do a few more rehearsals and a few more tests. If we do a lot of launches, then people are fairly well up to speed. So there can be some flexibility in there.
So, as a final question, have you got a favourite moment while you've been at the Space Centre here?
Obviously, the satisfaction of a successful launch, watching the pleasure of the clients, is always spectacular. There's so much effort going into it. So I would say the Galileo launch before Christmas was such a moment because it was the end of a very difficult year, which they really finished in style. And the Galileo launch is, of course, a very important one because it's also for the Commission. It's important to Europe because we need that satellite system if we want our independence from the other existing navigational systems. It's a triumph for Galileo. It's a triumph for the Cooperation Commission and the European Space Agency. It was a triumph for the teams. It capped a difficult year. The countdown was complicated also a little bit because of the dreadful weather, which sometimes happens. Although in general, rain doesn't bother us, but it's nicer for the VIPs if it doesn't rain too much. So it was a good ending to a really tough year.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
She's great.
Yeah, no,
That was super interesting.
Yeah, she's super nice, and there's some really interesting details in that. When you're there, you realise that this is a working, a really complicated working place that requires an enormous amount of effort, skill, and hard work. But also, everyone that I met, when we went round, we went to every single building. So we would go to a building where they were making the solid propellant in this enormous, like, Kenwood chef mixer thing. And the bloke would show us round, and obviously he could switch between about 3 or 4 different languages depending on which group he was talking to. But yeah, these are busy people. These were people that are busy. But when we went into their little factory, they would stop what they were doing and then take us on a really kind of calm, guided tour around their little bit. Yeah. Even the sort of head of the Bepi Colombo program took 20, 30 minutes out of his day to stand there and explaining the programme and everything to us. And
Yeah,
it was like,
it's really
oh
good,
man,
isn't it?
you're so lovely.
These people have got a lot on their plate, but they've got time to talk about it, knowing that people are going to be interested by this stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, another guy that I met there, because obviously there's 3 launch vehicles. There's the Ariane 5, Soyuz and Vega, right?
Yeah.
Now, this next interview, this is the guy who is the program manager for Vega at ESA, and he's an Italian. And we literally were sort of eating lunch, and I said, do you mind me giving you an interview? And he stopped his lunch, and we went off for a little interview. And we had some rum together, which was great. And
Liquid lunch. I like
liquid
it.
lunch. So it was beautiful. And he's again, this guy absolutely loved his job as well. As soon as we stepped onto the Vega mobile gantry, he just wanted to talk about it and just absolutely
Really
loved
super
it.
passionate.
He was just
That's what you want.
super passionate about what he does. So this was Stefano Bianchi, and he is the Vega program manager. So I tried to quiz him about how hard it was to get Vega working in the first place, because the one thing that's really odd is that it's kind of like it didn't seem like it was needed at the time, but he's obviously had the vision of going, no, this thing's actually needed. And as soon as the Russians started putting the price up of their engines, it suddenly was needed. So it was lucky that they actually started developing this thing.
Yeah.
And it's quite hard to make solid propellant rockets because you've got to have a lot of infrastructure to do it. You need the plant that makes the rocket propellant, you need the buildings that mix it, and then you need the buildings that then cook them in like massive vats. So this is like a huge undertaking.
Sounds expensive, Matt.
So it is expensive, and it's real expertise as well. So it's not the most obvious thing to do. So, but it's been super successful, this. So anyway, here is my little interview with Stefano. And notice a couple of weeks ago I said that the only thing that stresses out scientists, the only thing they become superstitious,
Is a rocket launch.
the rocket launch. Check this out.
Here we go.
Here's the Stefano's interview. Ascolta.
I'm Stefano Bianchi from the European Space Agency. I'm responsible director for developments of launcher development, space transportation developments, and I've been involved in Ariane 5 development, and then I was director of Vega development from the beginning up to the first flights, and now Ariane 6 and Vega C and the Space Rider.
Okay, yeah. Well, the one question that I think is really, really interesting, having spent some time here at the Space Centre, is how do you take a project like Vega from its very first thought? In fact, what were the first thoughts of why you wanted it, and how do you push that through into becoming a reality?
Let's say the first thought were we need a small launcher in Europe because we had at that time only Ariane 5, which is huge lorries, and let's say there was a market developing on small, when we say small, it's 1,700 kilos satellites in low Earth orbit. And we said, okay, let's try to use as much as possible what we have in Europe to develop a launcher, but we call it small, but at the end it's 130 tons and 30-meter high launcher, so to develop a launcher. So the first step was to get the money. So to convince participating states, and Italy took the lead for that launch, and we convinced 7 participating states to fund this development program. And then the fun starts because you have to do it, and we had to build the launch base here in Kourou. And
was there any pushback for the getting that money up front? First of all, was there any horse trading? What was the how did you go about?
I mean, there was a lot of work to convince member states, in particular through their industry, that it was a good project to go, and that there would have been economic viability on the project and the market for the project, which I'm speaking about the early 2000s, when at that time many member states were not convinced because we were close to the end of a Soviet Union. So in the 90s, end of the 90s, early 2000, it was very easy to find ballistic missiles reconverted at very cheap price. And everybody was saying, but why you want to develop a new launcher, European launcher, why I can buy Russian ballistic missile for nothing? And then you always have to see what will happen in 7-8 years when you develop a launcher, because it's not for the immediate, because it takes time.
Yeah. So was there some European technologies that you could leverage to make the Vega project happen?
Yes, the main technology was a solid propulsion, because we developed solid propulsion for Ariane 5. It was a great advancement with a booster of Ariane 5, and in particular in Italy. So Italy took the lead because of his heritage on solid propulsion. We said, okay, let's do a cheap launcher based on solid propulsion with 3 solid propulsion stage. And more than that, let's develop also another system capability in Italy for this launcher. And that was then we decided to use as much as possible existing plants, to limit the investment in industrial plants and focus on some technologies, in particular for solid propulsion on composite cases, which enables to increase radically the performance of the solid boosters, electromechanical actuator, avionics, and so we had some areas where we wanted to increase the technology content.
And how many nations are involved with
7.
7 nations are
Yes,
involved. And how do you split up the responsibilities for various elements?
I mean, Italy took the lead, so the propulsion was mostly Italian and the system Italian. Then the second country is France, which gave also a great contribution to the first stage in particular, and of course on the ground facility here. And then we split up the responsibility based on the industrial heritage of Ariane 5, so structures in Spain, in the Netherlands, transvector control in Belgium, fairing in Switzerland. So we had, let's say, we tried to use as much as possible what was the European experience in the sector.
And how does Vega C and Ariane 6 take the project forward? What's the...
I mean, Ariane 6 and Vega C are a step forward in terms of technology, in terms also of using the same solid rocket motor, which is an improved version of a P-80, which goes from 88 tons to 142 tons. And they use the same engine we use the same engine for Ariane 6 and Vega C, which is a unique choice. Nobody has done it ever in the world. So to have a solid rocket motor used for two different launches.
Was there a moment where people suddenly realised that you could get this brilliant cost saving by having your
it was in
2014.
Vehicle. We had a lot of discussion on what should have been the new generation of following Ariane 5, so we were studying the new generation of Ariane 6 and the possible evolution of Vega. Why an evolution of Vega? To much better the market, so we needed a bit of an increase of performances and a cost reduction, so basically to increase the performance at the same cost, and we are increasing by 50%. And the same, we needed a decrease of the cost with respect to Ariane 5 by 50%. So that was a bit the main idea of using the same engine, because of course you save development costs and you increase the rate and you reduce also the production cost.
Yeah. So once you have Vega C up and running, are people already thinking about what the next step?
We always have to think to the next step, because who stops in this business is dead. So we have to think every day how we shall improve our launchers and how we can reduce the cost of our launcher, improve the flexibility, be more towards the customer. Clearly, that is, and we are already thinking what will be the next steps, and we are already working on the next steps. And the next steps are on liquid propulsion to produce engines one of the main technology is additive layer manufacturing, which is really a breakthrough, which can radically reduce the cost of liquid engines. We are working also on solid propulsion to reduce more and more the cost of the processes on the upper stages structure. So it's already going on.
Any final thoughts about the success of the Vega program? What for you has made it come alive and be a program that's seen quite a lot of success?
The wonderful thing when you work on launcher, which can be wonderful or very bad, it is that you work for many years, because it's 8, 9, 10 years, and one day you arrive and you have a launch. So, and it's like you have fixed the show at the theater, and the premiere is fixed, and you can't do anything if you are not ready. There is always some thoughts, something to be improved, but you know that you have to launch, and suddenly the time is decreasing, and everybody will see what happens, because there is no excuse. I mean, ever it works, ever it doesn't. So, and that is really some tension, which is great. Of course, is great when you have a success, and that's also why I always respect, and I cry when there is an unsuccess also in competition, because it's so strong what you feel when you see your object flying, or when you see that you have a problem, that let's say it's like a family of rocket scientists. I feel it like that. Like, I don't know how to say it, but it's
yes. I mean, so that very first launch here at in Guyana, presumably, were you aware of the kind of emotional part of how it was going to feel, or did that even take you by surprise, just how intense it was?
I mean, when I was revisiting the statistics of the days before, and the statistics were clearly against us. So it's less than 50% of, is more than 50% of failure probability for a completely new launch system. So you can understand. So, at every stage separation, we say, okay, let's go on, let's go to next, and then we arrived with a perfect flight, I have to say, and it was really a wonderful day.
Well, brilliant. And did anyone do something stupid like growing beards? Did you do it?
Oh, of course. Oh, we have so many stories on that, on superstition. You cannot even imagine how rocket scientists can be superstitious, which is a completely oxymoric. I don't know if oxymoron is.
It's an oxymoron. Yeah,
it's an oxymoron for between science and magician. But we are very superstitious. Yes.
That's brilliant. That's a really ace bit to end on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And let's get back to lunch. What do you think of that, Jamie?
I thought it was another banger.
He's a banger. I really liked him. He was, honestly, I can't tell you how enthusiastic he was about Vega.
It's so nice to hear, because the worry is that you're going to get someone in such a great position and they're just going to be someone who's very smart, but they're not massively bothered. And to hear the passion from Stefano, it's really heartwarming.
Mm-hmm. Now, there was I have to say, we had lots of discussions over drinks and meals and things. And quite a few of the French, in particular, journalists and people, space experts and industry leaders, were quite negative about Elon Musk and the way that what they called dumping, like price dumping on the market. So they were not that impressed. Some of them weren't even that impressed about reusability even.
Right.
So it's interesting that there was definitely not a great vibe for Musk.
There must be quite a bit of jealousy with what he's doing.
Do you think jealousy?
I think a little bit, because he's the poster boy of revolutionising the space industry.
No, I think these people were serious enough not for it to be jealousy, and it was much more that they were worried that they couldn't really compete because he was using the money from COTS, for example, to actually subsidise and do lower prices.
Got it.
Now, I have to say, Eric Berger
was like really quite vocal in his defence of Elon Musk on these things. It was great having him there because I would have crumbled under the Elon Musk bashing, but he was definitely there to put the case forward.
Nice.
Which he did very eloquently, of course.
Oh, of course he did.
Of course he does. I've got one more interview, which actually has my favourite moment of the. Which do you want first? Interview with the Director of Operations, Jean-Luc Voyer. And he's the Director of Operations for a launch. So when a launch comes up, he becomes the Director of Operations, which is a pretty amazing job, i.e. the Commander-in-Chief of a launch campaign. So he basically controls the room as they're launching, and everything comes through.
That's no small task.
Comes through them, yeah. So it's a great job. It's what's known as the DDO.
Okay, so what's the other option, Matt?
The other option
Give me one.
The option is to listen to that interview and him show me how he does a countdown, because he's the voice of the countdown. So
I'd love that.
if you listen to of something like VA 222,
10, 9.
well, no, he does it obviously.
Like that?
Well, no, not quite like that.
Okay.
But which do you want to hear first? My interview and his countdown, or my attempt at the countdown in the control room?
I'd like to hear his interview first and then save yours for a
Okay.
little treat at the end.
Okay, so here is Jean-Luc Voyer, the DDO of many a launch campaign. Écoutez.
Okay, so Jean-Luc Voyer, I'm from the CNES company. So as you may know, the CNES is responsible of the base, and so the DDO from the CNES is responsible of the whole campaign, and specifically during the final countdown. So I have a team, the DDO have a team, and we prepare the whole campaign during the preparation of the spacecraft, during the fueling phase. Once the spacecraft goes to the launcher, so Space takes the lead for the final preparation of the launch. And during the final chronology, it's the DDO who manage the whole countdown. Yes.
Okay, so is there much competition to be the DDO? As in, presumably, it's a prize job. How did you manage to get yourself in the seat?
You're right. There are a lot of people who would like to be DDO. So we are a team. In this team, where you have a lot of specialists in different systems. On each DDO has a project manager. So we have to make some coordinations, the management of the operations of the team. So we have some skills in management. We are expert in a dedicated system, and we have to follow the whole systems. So we have to know a little bit on the whole systems too.
What was the first flight that you had this position?
When?
Yeah.
It's 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Do you remember what the launch campaign was?
Yes, for sure. We always remember of the first campaign, yes, as a DDO. So it was VA 222 on 2 telecommunication spacecraft, and it was in May of 2014.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it all went well?
Finally, yes. Because during the chronology we had some small issues, but finally it was okay. Everything was very very nice.
So on the morning of when you had your first go in the seat, how were you feeling?
It's very stressing because it's the first time that you do it, and you know that everybody. It's very important for everybody, for the customers first, because it's about their spacecraft. It's very important for Space, for the CNES, for ESA. So it's very important that everything goes very, very good. But in the CNES department, we are very well prepared. We all have our procedures. We are trained. We have some trainings, so that makes easier for the final chronology.
And you have a dress rehearsal beforehand? Is that
Yes,
correct?
for sure.
Yeah.
For every launch, we have a dress rehearsal for 4 days before the final chronology. Yes, so that makes us
Takes the pressure off.
becoming confident, more confident for the D-Day. Yeah.
Can you give me? Can you do a countdown for me through
For
the
sure,
system?
for sure. I
That'd
can.
be-
Yes, I can.
Yes.
So, à tous de l'EDO, attention pour les décomptes finales. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage Vulcain, allumage UAP, décollage.
There we go.
And you can feel, I can even just
yeah,
hearing
that-
him, I can feel like,
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux, yes, so it's very...
How many of those have you done for real?
How many what?
How many launches have you actually done for real?
6. 6 launches.
And they're all Ariane 5s, or?
No, and 5, 1 Vega and two Soyuz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you do.
Yeah.
So it's not particular to a launch vehicle. It's just particular to the
Yeah.
to the space center itself. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much
You're
for
welcome.
spending the time to
It's
answer
a
my
pleasure, yes.
questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, that cool. Hey, that's the guy. That's the voice you hear when you hear.
Jean-Luc, brilliant stuff. That's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's the voice you hear when you tune in to watch an Ariane launch.
I love that.
Or one of the many voices. It's a really highly competitive job, that one. But do you want to hear my attempt?
Here we go.
So
Don't let me down.
No. So I just want to point out my attempt. He is
Already making excuses.
Jean-Luc spent the time to write out what I needed to say into my notebook because I couldn't. Because he thought I could just remember these sentences.
Right.
And of course, I was like, what?
Right.
But I did the countdown on my own. I can count down backwards in French, which was stressful because I'd never tried it before. And I
Yeah.
thought, maybe I can't.
I'm trying to remember the 1 to 10 normally. Okay.
So I was like, I thought, because Richard Hollingham had just given it a go, and there's a button that you press, a screen button. It's like really space age because it's like a button on the screen, and you press the button, and the whole thing goes to the entire spaceport, unless you press another button that mutes the rest of the spaceport. So luckily, we pressed the button that muted the spaceport.
Is this a good time to bring up the story where you did your Miss Dynamite hit?
It could have been a very
Should
similar...
we wait till next week? That's the cliffhanger.
Yeah, cliffhanger. Miss Dynamite
week.
story. But yeah, so luckily it was muted. There's a lot of chuckles in the room. I don't know why. I don't think they were impressed with
they
my
not take you
French
seriously?
accent.
Well, I'd love to hear it.
So here we go.
Let's go.
À toute de Didier, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top! Allemand Vulcain, allemand EPA, décollage.
You know what, Matt?
Listen.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I'm considering that as my interview for being the director of operations for the new UK spaceport.
Well, I think you've got the job after hearing that.
Aye. So, just leaves one space fact, Jamie.
Matt, if I said to you, what is the total mass of the asteroid belt compared to the moon, or our moon, I should say?
As a percentage?
As a percentage, please. What would you
the
say?
percentage of the asteroid belt, the total mass of the asteroid belt, as
All the
compared to the
asteroids
moon.
in the asteroid belt clumped together.
How much do they weigh compared to the moon?
Yes.
300%?
300% is your guess.
Yeah.
Matt, you'd be wrong. It's 4 Do not adjust your sets. I said 4%.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you a question here, Jamie.
Here we go.
Which is that is actually amazing.
That's insane, isn't it?
Well, because in the asteroid belt, there's bodies like Ceres and things like that, which are massive.
And also, when you hear
It's
about people
Ceres
talking
is a
about
minor
mining
planet.
asteroids, which are huge.
Yes. In other
then-
words, I think the moon is much bigger than you give it
Moon's
credit
bigger
for.
than we think.
Yeah, it's way bigger than you give it credit
I still think about it like a big golf ball
Yeah.
made of cheese.
Yeah, I don't think it's much bigger than a golf
Yeah.
ball, is it? Yeah. That's why, so the whole asteroid belt was... So, on a similar theme as that, right, what is the average distance between asteroids in the asteroid belt? Now, I think we've mentioned this before on the podcast, because when Voyager was travelling when Voyager, for example, was travelling to Jupiter, they were worried that it might get broken up when it travelled through the asteroid belt. But when you hear this statistic, you'll say, oh yeah, it's totally unlikely.
I've totally forgotten, but I'm going to go with 2,000 miles.
2,000 miles. Not bad. It's actually 600,000 miles. So almost 1 million kilometres between each
That is mind-blowing.
asteroid. So yeah,
What the hell was Harrison Ford worried about?
So the asteroid belt, just
Wait a minute, are you telling me that scene in Star Wars didn't happen?
No, but that was a planet that had just been blown up, so they may have been like fresh debris.
And this was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It wasn't necessarily our asteroid belt.
No, did you notice in the new Star Wars? Have we mentioned this, that the Kessler Run they actually repaired the mistake?
Did they?
Yeah, did you not notice that?
I didn't know that.
So in Solo, have you watched Solo?
Not yet. Don't give it anything
I'm not going
away.
to give it away then. But yeah, you know on the
Wait, did you like it?
I loved it.
Oh,
Absolutely loved
It's obviously.
No, it's not. I think you might like it.
All right, let's move on.
But anyway, remember the Kessler Run? What does he do it in?
Oh, I can't remember.
It does it in 12 parsecs.
Parsecs, that's it.
Yeah, so 12 parsecs is obviously a distance, not a time.
Yes.
But they explain it in Solo.
No
it's
way,
really
so
good.
they
So go and watch it, and it's like makes sense. It actually
there we
makes,
go. It's
they
worth
actually,
it just for that.
Yeah, it is almost worth it just for that. So it makes me feel like a fool that I didn't realise that's
And
what they meant.
Childish Gambino's in it, so it's got to be good.
Childish Gambino,
Lando.
who two girls at work think I look like, which is just about the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard since someone said you were the white Grace Jones.
I can kind of see it. You're the white.
I'm the white
Childish
Childish,
Gambino. Yeah, I can see
Childish
it.
Gambino. Fair enough.
There we go. Grace Jones
So
and Childish coming to you.
Yeah. Jamie,
Yes.
you've been listening to the Interplanetary podcast, putting the ace back into space.
10,
9, 8,
8,
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Decollage. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.
See you soon. Bye.
See you next week.